Is this Will Muschamp's last year at South Carolina? If 2020 does not end with a bowl berth, many believe it will be. Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, the best kept secret in all of college football. Today, bringing you our 2020 South Carolina Gamecocks college football predictions. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also make sure to check out everything down in the description below, where you can visit our new website, thegridironexpert.com, and also follow us on our social media pages over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So Will Muschamp is entering his 5th year in Columbia, and it really doesn't feel like it's been that long. But he has compiled just a 26-25 record with the Gamecocks. And despite last year being the first year that he missed out on a bowl game with South Carolina, many have him on the hot seat. The Gamecocks went 4-8 in 2019, but they did that with arguably the toughest schedule in the country and were also ravaged by injuries last year. So you have to cut Will Muschamp just a little bit of slack. He's just a few years removed from a 9-win season with the Gamecocks. But he needs to get South Carolina back to the postseason this year. And to do that, they're going to have to improve drastically offensively. South Carolina returned 6 starters on offense from a unit that was wildly inconsistent in 2019. They only averaged 22.4 points per game. And yes, we do know that they lost their star quarterback Jake Bentley in Week 1. He is now transferred on to Utah. But Ryan Hilinski stepped in and, to me, did a very good job, all things considered. Yes, we know he was beat up. Yes, we know he faced a tough schedule. But he still threw for over 2,300 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. So a lot of this season will ride on how well and how big of a step forward Ryan Hilinski takes in his second year as starter. It will also ride on how quickly he builds chemistry with an unproven wide receiver core outside of Shi Smith, the only wide receiver really that returns from that core from last year. When you look at South Carolina's running game, they also have some question marks. They will more likely be led by the freshman, Marshawn Lloyd, who is the highest rated running back recruit to come through South Carolina since Marshawn Lattimore. So there's plenty of talent there. There's plenty of people that can really step up and improve this offense for South Carolina. And if they can just average about 26 points per game, so it's a little over 3 points per game more than they had last year, it could result in a few more victories and sending SC to the postseason. When you look at their defense, they returned 6 starters as well, a unit that wasn't all that bad last year. They ranked 66 in total defense, allowed just 26.1 points per game. They do lose their star, Javon Kinlaw, up front. So the front 4, that defensive line, does have some question marks. But the back 7 is pretty dang strong. They return their leading tackler in Ernest Jones at linebacker, and that secondary is going to be one of the best in the SEC, with Israel, Mukuamu, J.C. Horn, and R.J. Roderick. So guys, let me tell you, I wouldn't want to be a quarterback in the SEC East. With the secondaries we're seeing at Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, and South Carolina, it's going to be pretty tough to throw the ball in that division. So South Carolina, they need to get to a bowl game. More specifically, Will Muschamp needs to get to a bowl game. Can they do it? They kick off the season with Coastal Carolina. We are going to give them a win over that Sun Belt opponent. Also do the same here against East Carolina. Neither of these 2 games automatic victories. Coastal Carolina taking down Kansas last year, a Kansas team that was relatively competitive in year 1 under Les Miles. And East Carolina, a team that really took a step forward offensively last year and could challenge South Carolina's defense. Regardless, we do think they start off 2-0 going into SEC play at home against Missouri. So South Carolina's 3-game winning streak over the Tigers was snapped last year, where they went to Columbia, Missouri, and fell to the Tigers 34-14. But let me tell you, I am not too high on this Missouri squad in 2020. They bring in a brand new head coach in Eli Drinkwitz, coming all the way from Appalachian State to Missouri. The Sun Belt to the SEC. And he's got major questions on offense, especially at the quarterback position. And the defense, returns about 7 starters. Was ranked 14th nationally in total defense. But I don't think it's going to be nearly as strong as they were last year. The game is at home for South Carolina. Missouri has way too many question marks across the board. And with a brand new head coach that didn't get the benefit from spring practice, that hurts Missouri more than it hurts South Carolina. And I like the Gamecocks to get revenge after that 20-point beatdown they suffered last year. And just like that, South Carolina's halfway there. They're 3-0, 3 wins away from making a bowl game. They go on the road to Kentucky on September 26th. And this 3-game stretch here, guys, is very, very difficult. At Kentucky, at Florida, Tennessee at home. And then right after the bye week, you get a very good Texas A&M squad. So the schedule is a little bit lighter than it was last year, but not by much. We start here with Kentucky. South Carolina snapped their 5-game losing streak to the Wildcats last year, defeating them 24-7. Keep in mind, that was when Kentucky was going through all of their quarterback injuries. That's before they really settled on Lynn Bowden, the wide receiver, lining up under center, and then the rest is history. Kentucky went 6-2 with Bowden under center. The game is in Lexington. They're going to have Terry Wilson back at quarterback, assuming he can stay healthy. And this Kentucky defense, guys, was 2nd in the country in passing defense and 21st in the country in total defense. They returned 7 starters from that unit. They're going to be just as strong, if not better, in 2020. I don't like their odds on the road. I think South Carolina drops this game to the Wildcats. I think they dropped that game on the road to Florida, too. Last year, South Carolina hung with the Gators at Williams-Brice Stadium, only losing 38-27. And that was a game where Florida had just come off a heartbreaking loss at LSU. And that was a game that South Carolina was just coming off a thrilling victory over Georgia, one of the biggest upsets of the 2019 season. So some thought that South Carolina might be able, with home field advantage, to pull off the upset over the Gators. And they were unable to do so. Once again, 2 great secondaries here. Florida's secondary versus South Carolina's secondary. But Florida certainly owns the offensive edge. They own the edge at quarterback. They own the edge with their wide receivers. Biggest question mark for Florida offensively is their offensive line. And I think that will be fairly solid by October 3rd. Muschamp, the offensive mind, or the defensive mind versus Mullen, the offensive mind always usually creates a good matchup, but it's going to be Mullen that gets the job done in the swamp. South Carolina drops their 2nd straight, and we believe they dropped their 3rd straight as well here at home against Tennessee. A Tennessee team they lost to by 20 points last year, 41-21. A Tennessee team that's getting a lot of hype going into 2020. And I'm not necessarily buying into the hype, but I did see what Jeremy Pruitt did over those final 6 games last year. Tennessee starting 1-4, but winning their final 6 games, finished the season 8-5. Tennessee's heading in the right direction. They return a lot of talent offensively. They just get a little bit better quarterback play out of Jarrett Garantano, and it could be a special season. I just don't see the Volunteers coming on the road and falling to this South Carolina team that, once again, I think is going to still sputter here and there offensively. So 3-0 start turns into a 3-3, 500 mark going into their bye week. But they're going to go above 500 after the bye week. Yeah, we've got them beating Texas A&M. And I know. People are going to say, hold the phone. Are you kidding me? Losing to Tennessee but beating Texas A&M. Or not even that. You have a beating one of those 2 teams? Absolutely I do. And this game against Texas A&M, to me, is the one that makes the most sense. Because I will tell you right now, South Carolina is not losing both of these games. They will defeat Tennessee, and our whiteboard is in shock as well. They will defeat Tennessee and lose to A&M, or they will lose to Tennessee and defeat A&M. They are going to win one of those 2 games. No way that South Carolina drops both of those at home. Now, I like this Texas A&M game here. A Texas A&M team that might be undefeated coming into this game. But Texas A&M team that's always overhyped. I do expect to have a big year under Jimbo Fisher. But South Carolina's coming off a week of rest into this one. I like that a lot. But compared to the Tennessee game, where they're coming off back-to-back road games against very solid opponents where they might be worn out and could suffer beatdowns. Off a week of rest against an A&M team that in Columbia, South Carolina usually plays well against. As long as they are able to shut down Isaiah Spiller in that Texas A&M run game, I don't think Kellen Mond can win it solely through the air against this secondary. So I like South Carolina to get the job done in a game that almost feels like a must-win for them, considering their November slate that we'll get to shortly. So they will win one of the games against Tennessee and A&M. They will not win both, but they will not lose both either. We've got them defeating the Aggies. They go on the road to take on Vanderbilt. Win for South Carolina. They go on the road to take on Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt team they defeated 24-7 last year, and a Vanderbilt team that's going to be one of the worst teams in the country. One of the worst teams in the country, and might be the last year of the Derek Mason era. They have a very experienced defense. I wasn't even going to say talented, but experienced defense coming back in Nashville. But the offense is in shambles. They're going to struggle mightily. Vanderbilt will be lucky if they score more than 10 points in this one. South Carolina gets the win here, going into a very, very tough November. And here's the thing, guys. You look at this game. This game against Wofford here on November 21st. That's going to be your buffer. If South Carolina does not have 5 wins or more going into November, they're probably not going bowling. Because as you can see, we've geared them the win over Wofford, which means we have them going bowling. We have them going at least 6-6. But if South Carolina is a 4-win team coming into this, that Wofford game might give them 5 wins. But then they would have to beat Georgia, LSU, or Clemson. The 2 teams that met in the SEC Championship, and then the 2 teams that met in the National Championship. And then they faced the reigning national champs on the road in Death Valley, one of the toughest places to play. So they have to have 5 wins or more going into November if they want to have any chance of getting to the postseason. Because naturally we had them losing all 3 of these games. To Georgia, to LSU, and to Clemson. You look at the Georgia game. Yes, we know that South Carolina defeated Georgia last year in Athens. 20-17 in overtime in Athens. Israel Mukuamu became the biggest nightmare for Jake Fromm. He torched that passing game for Georgia. Interception after interception after interception. Jake Fromm's gone. That offense that we saw last year from Georgia is gone. Completely gone. Todd Monken is in. Jamie Newman is in. JT Daniels is there as well if he gets eligibility. Very talented wide receiver core that's still young but talented, and a defense that has a chance to be one of the best in the country. You look at this game. Yes, it's at Williams-Brice Stadium. I love that for South Carolina. I think they could hang with Georgia for at least a half. But it's a revenge game, and you know the Bulldogs want revenge. I just don't see Carolina having much of a chance in this one. LSU on the road. Doesn't need much explanation there. They're the reigning national champions. Yes, they lost a lot from that national championship team, but not many teams are able to go into Death Valley and pick up a win. And with the inconsistency offensively, South Carolina's not going to be able to do that. And of course, Clemson, the season finale, in-state rivalry game, a game that South Carolina has not won since 2013. That's not going to change this year. With Clemson still bringing back Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, and a very strong defense, once again led by Brent Venables, Clemson is almost a shoo-in for the college football playoff, and South Carolina having to travel to another Death Valley is not going to pull out a win there. But it doesn't matter. Everybody knows that the November slate is going to be so tough. We know the key, 5 wins or more before the Georgia game. They are going to get it. In South Carolina, we have going 6-6 in year 5 under Will Muschamp. And I think that's a fantastic year. If I'm a Gamecock fan, I'm thrilled with that because my team is back in the postseason. My team's back in the postseason with an extremely difficult schedule, especially that month of November. Extremely difficult schedule. They are able to pull off 6 wins, guys. 6 wins. And once again, we said the key, 5 wins or more before November, but ultimately, that 6 wins not going to be Wofford here on November 21st. That 6th win is going to come against Tennessee or A&M. This little 2-game home stretch is the key for South Carolina. If everything goes according to plan, it's going to be these 2 home games that, to me, ultimately decide whether or not the Gamecocks get to go to a bowl game in 2020. I think they win one of them, and that's all they need. Pull off one of those wins at home, they head to the postseason for the first time, or after a 1-year hiatus, they get back to the postseason, and that might just be enough, guys, to save Will Muschamp's job. So thank you guys so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also check out everything down in the description below, where you can visit our official website, thegridironexpert.com, and also follow us on all of our social media pages over on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.